Right. One of the one of the biggest questions that I got was how to set up the board. How do you set it up? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I think about when I set up. I always start with the pawns and squires. I always try and keep it to that simplicity. So what I do is I remember the song 1 3 4 3 1, and in between is where you put the squires. Now in this set, the squire is like a shield with a head. Okay, so 1 3 space squire, the center pawns, space, another squire. There we go. And then once I've done the pawns, I make sure all 4 knights are behind the squires. Squires were in medieval terms were apprentice knights, and so I make sure all 4 knights go behind the squires. Knights behind the squires. Okay, next I make sure the bishops go next to the knights. Exactly, it should look exactly like how chess sets up on either side. And then you've got a light squared bishop and you've got a dark squared. And then what I do, I make sure the gargoyles are on D and M for Dave Mills, the inventor of Tarka. And then I put in the archers. Make sure I just visually check they're the same colour as the bishops. And then I Jack and Jill. I make sure that the prince and the princess go on J and G, respectively. And then with the last 2, the king and the queen, I always make sure I put it on I for important for the king and H for her highness. And I always check a visual check that that the dress matches the shoes, that the queen is always on her colour, and that applies for white and black. And the king is on I for important, and so there we go. So just when I'm finally finished setting up, I just quickly run down 1 3 4 3 1. Make sure the squires are there. I make sure the rooks are in the corners, the gargoyles are on the right, the bishops and archers are on the right colour, and I make sure that these knights next to the royals, I affectionately nicknamed the royal knights, and I make sure these knights, they're all behind the squires. I just double check everything, just straighten them up, fuss over it, and there you go. I always try and make sure that I'm doing that when I'm setting up. And the reason is because there's nothing worse than starting a game and having pieces around the wrong way. Nothing worse, because you have to restart the game, so I always check my side of the board. And it can actually be helpful to your opponents if you check their side of the board as well before you start, because you don't want your game interrupted and having to start again. So help your friends out, make sure you check that they've set everything up correctly. I love you all, take care, cheers. Hey, so